Hello, and welcome to Reality TV News Update, where you'll find the most recent news, entertaining moments, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Rachel Reilly is doing more than just supporting her man. Now she's standing by her game, too. The fan-favorite Big Brother winner recently addressed a now-deleted social media post that suggested her success in the game was influenced more by production than strategy. While she didn't amplify the negativity, Reilly made it clear she wasn't going to let her game be mischaracterized. Instead, she used the moment to confidently explain exactly how she plays and why it works. Rachel Reilly breaks down her Big Brother strategy. In her response, Reilly emphasized that her success on Big Brother comes down to timing, relationships, and competitions. "Really, let's try to go there," Reilly wrote on X earlier this month. She emphasized her ability to strike a balance between competitive strength and strategic thinking, to win when it mattered most, and to play with her heart. She also emphasized the significance of social positioning, which includes establishing trust, obtaining votes from allies, and preserving solid connections within the house. She wrote, "Really, let's try to go there. I won when I needed to. I played with my heart. I'm strategic and competitive. This season didn't even go on the block once and wouldn't have because I'm a good gamer, not because of production. I had my alliance vote for me when I won." The winner of Big Brother Season 13 entered the game with a significant goal, but she was able to completely evade the nomination block during her time in the game because she was the only house guest who was returning for the season. She built tight bonds with Amy Bingham, Ashley Hollis, and Jimmy Hegarty while navigating rivalries, or friendships, with Kiana Soto and Vinny Pinaro. Her game ultimately came to an end after she fell short in one of the show's twists, a trip to the White Locust Hotel, making her the season's first member of the jury. Rachel Reilly's response is well received by fans. Reilly's response only reinforced how many fans still see her as one of the franchise's strongest players. Support poured in, with viewers praising both her track record and her confidence in defending it. She was referred to as one of the greats by some, while others emphasized that her consistency and capacity to avoid trouble speak for themselves. "Period, and that's why you're one of the greats," one user wrote. "You're one of the best players ever, and people hate that your record is so clean," said another. At the end of the day, Reilly made it clear she's confident in the game she played. Rachel Reilly had heard it all before: manipulator, villain, drama queen, lucky. Big Brother fans debated her gameplay for years, debating every competition win, alliance, and emotional outburst like a court case. Some praised her as one of the fiercest competitors the game had ever seen. Others dismissed her as chaotic, claiming her success was more spectacle than strategy. But Rachel was done letting others define her story. Sitting in a quiet studio, preparing for an interview that would air to millions of devoted fans, she adjusted her posture and took a steady breath. This wasn't just another appearance. This was her chance to set the record straight. "I think people misunderstand me," she began, her voice calm but firm. "They see the loud and emotional times, but they don't always see the plan behind them." Rachel's journey in the Big Brother house had never been subtle. From the moment she first walked through those doors, she made an impression: bold, unapologetic, and impossible to ignore. She didn't blend into the background, and she never tried to. "That was intentional," she admitted. "If you're invisible in that house, you're expendable. I made sure people knew who I was." Critics often pointed to her emotional gameplay as a weakness. Rachel saw it differently. "Emotion is power," she said. "People think being emotional means you're out of control, but sometimes it means you're controlling how others perceive you." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes focused. "If people think you're reacting instead of planning, they underestimate you. And in that game, being underestimated is one of the strongest positions you can have." It was a perspective that reframed her most controversial moments. The tears, the arguments, the explosive confrontations, they weren't just reactions. They were, at times, calculated moves designed to shift attention, create chaos, or mask deeper strategies. "Not everything was planned," she admitted with a small laugh. "I'm human, but I was always thinking about how my actions affected the game." Rachel's competitive dominance was another cornerstone of her legacy. She won when it mattered. Head of household competitions, veto challenges, clutch moments that kept her safe when the odds were stacked against her. "I knew I had to win," she said simply. "I didn't have the luxury of sitting back and letting others carry me." In a game where social bonds often determine success, Rachel's path was different. She didn't rely solely on alliances or quiet manipulation. She fought, sometimes literally, always figuratively, for her place in the house. "That's why I think people call me lucky," she explained, "because saying that is easier than admitting that I earned those wins." She paused, letting the weight of that statement settle. Competition victory is not luck. It's preparation, focus, and determination, and I brought all three every single time. Still, Rachel acknowledged that her journey wasn't perfect. There were moments she would handle differently if given the chance. "I've grown a lot since then," she said. "Watching yourself on TV is humbling. You see things you didn't notice in the moment." But even with that hindsight, she stood by her overall approach. "I played hard, I played authentically, and I never gave up." That authenticity, she believed, was her greatest strength and her biggest challenge. "You're constantly under pressure in that house," she explained. "You can't always pretend to be who you are. Eventually, the real you comes out, and what you saw with me, that was real." For Rachel, that reality included vulnerability. It included passion. It included moments of doubt and frustration alongside moments of triumph. She stated, "I think people forget that we are real people living in an intense environment, not characters. Every decision feels huge because it is huge." As the conversation continued, Rachel addressed one of the most persistent criticisms of her gameplay, that she relied too heavily on her partner and alliances. She shook her head. "I worked with people, yes, that's part of the game, but I also stood on my own when I had to," she said. "There were times when I had no safety net, and I still made it through." Her voice carried a quiet pride. "That's what I want people to understand. I wasn't just part of someone else's strategy. I was building my own." The interviewer asked what she would say to fans who still doubted her. Rachel smiled, a mix of confidence and warmth. "I'd say go back and watch closely," she replied. "Look at the timing of my moves. Look at when I won competitions. Look at how I navigated the house when things weren't going my way." She paused, before adding, "There is more happening than you might think." As the interview neared its end, Rachel reflected on what Big Brother had meant to her, not just as a game, but as a life experience. "It changed me," she said. "It taught me about resilience, about reading people, about trusting myself even when things get tough. And perhaps most importantly, it taught her how to handle the spotlight, the praise and the criticism alike. You can't please everyone," she said, "but you can stay true to who you are." That, in many ways, was the essence of Rachel Reilly's gameplay. It wasn't about fitting into a mold or playing a quiet, invisible game. It was about embracing her strengths, owning her personality, and competing with everything she had. "I know I'm not everyone's favorite," she admitted, "and that's fine." She leaned back, her expression relaxed but resolute. "However, I know that I gave that game everything I had, and I believe that requires respect." As the cameras stopped rolling, there was a sense that something had shifted, not just in how Rachel saw herself, but in how others might see her too. Because beyond the noise, beyond the debates and the labels, there was a player who had fought hard, played boldly, and refused to be forgotten. And now, finally, she had told her story.
For years, Rachel Reilly has been one of the most talked about players in Big Brother history.
Rachel's gameplay has endured long after her seasons have ended, being adored by some, panned by others, and endlessly debated on fan forums. But now, she's ready to clear the air and finally set the record straight. During a live fan Q&A, a straightforward inquiry served as the catalyst. Did you actually have a strategy, or were you just reacting the entire time? Rachel smiled, but not the playful, over-the-top smile fans remembered from the show. This one was sharper, more reflective. "I always had a strategy," she said. "The difference is that I did not play a game that people were accustomed to seeing." From the moment Rachel entered the Big Brother house, she stood out. While many contestants tried to blend in, build quiet alliances, and avoid becoming targets, Rachel did the opposite. She was clearly visible, emotional, and loud. She stated, "That wasn't an accident. You have two options when you enter that house. You can either hide or take control of the story. I went with control." Her approach confused both house guests and viewers. Emotional outbursts were often seen as weakness, but Rachel insists they were part of a larger picture. "People think emotions are unpredictable," she said, "but in that environment, emotions are currency. If people think you're too emotional to be strategic, they stop looking at you as a threat." She leaned into that perception, sometimes deliberately escalating situations to divert attention from her long-term objectives. "I'm not saying every moment was calculated," she admitted, "but I understood how perception works in that game. I also used it." Rachel's track record in competition speaks for itself. Time and again, when she was on the brink of elimination, she pulled out crucial wins: head of household, veto, high-pressure moments where one mistake could send her home. "I didn't have the luxury of coasting," she said. "I wasn't in a position where I could just rely on social bonds. I had to fight for every week I stayed." And fight she did. However, critics frequently attributed those victories to luck. However, Rachel has a very different perspective. "Winning isn't luck," she said firmly. "You mentally prepare, you study people, you learn how competitions work, and you act when the time is right." After a brief pause, she added, tinged with fire, "Luck doesn't win you that many times." One of the most persistent narratives surrounding Rachel's gameplay has been her relationship with fellow contestant Brendan Villigans. Many fans believed her success was tied too closely to their partnership. Rachel doesn't deny their bond, but she challenges the idea that it defined her game. "Working with someone you trust is part of Big Brother, but I also made independent decisions. There were moments where I had to stand alone, and I did." She recalled times when alliances crumbled, when targets shifted, and when she found herself with no clear path forward. "That's when you see what kind of player someone really is," she said, "and I adapted." Adaptation, Rachel believes, is one of the most overlooked aspects of her gameplay. While others stuck rigidly to alliances or strategies, she adjusted based on the constantly changing dynamics of the house. "The game resets every week," she explained. "If you don't evolve, you're gone." Of course, not every move she made was perfect. Rachel is the first to admit that. "There are things I'd do differently now," she said. "Watching it back, you see moments where you could have handled something better, socially, strategically, emotionally." However, she does not regard those instances as failures. They're part of the game. Nobody performs flawlessly. It doesn't matter how you recover. Rachel addressed the villain label that followed her throughout and after her time on the show, as the conversation grew more depth. "I think it's easy to label strong personalities as villains, especially women who aren't afraid to speak up or take control." Her willingness to engage in conflict made for compelling television. However, it also influenced audiences' perceptions of her. What people saw was a small slice of a much bigger experience. You're living under pressure 24/7. Every conversation, every decision, it's all amplified. Despite that, Rachel insists she never played a character. "That was me," she said. "Maybe a more intense version of me, but still real." And that authenticity, she believes, is what ultimately resonated with fans, whether they loved her or loved to debate her. People connected with it, she said, because it wasn't fake. When asked what she wants fans to understand now, years later, Rachel didn't hesitate. She stated, "I want them to look beyond the surface. Look at the timing of my wins. Look at how I dealt with being targeted. Look at how I stayed in the game when it would have been easier to go home." She gave a second, softer smile. There's strategy in that. Rachel also reflected on how Big Brother changed her, not just as a player, but as a person. "It teaches you resilience," she said. "You learn how to read people, how to handle pressure, how to keep going even when everything feels like it's falling apart." Those lessons stayed with her long after the camera stopped rolling. "It's more than a game," she added. "It's an experience that shapes you." As the Q&A wrapped up, one final question came in from a longtime fan. "Do you think you get the respect you deserve as a player?" Rachel took a moment before answering. "I think respect comes in different forms," she said. "Not everyone is going to agree on who the best players are or how the game should be played." She leaned forward slightly, her voice steady. "But I know what I did in that house. I know how hard I fought, and I know I never gave up." For Rachel, that's what matters most. "I didn't play a quiet game," she stated. "I didn't play a safe game. I played my game." And whether fans see her as a hero, a villain, or something in between, one thing is undeniable. Rachel Reilly left a mark on Big Brother that won't be forgotten anytime soon. Now, with her story finally told in her own words, Rachel isn't asking everyone to agree with her. She's just asking them to see the full picture.